Hey, folks, welcome to the podcast we love to call Transfin Long Shots. So, as you know, Adarsh, we were obviously chatting before we started rolling. The idea here is, we would like to understand your journey at Assurekit to date. Obviously, you come from some sort of an insurance pedigree or ex-ACO. You looked at strategic alliances there. Before that, you co-founded Rapid Delivery, which was more in the logistics slash e-commerce space. And now you have been rolling with Assurekit for the past, I would say, what, 1.5, 2 years or more. And I kind of understand you guys are a platform to enable insurance distribution, but I think what does that exactly mean? Probably that's a good starting point. And I kind of got a sense that you kind of act as an interface between insurance manufacturers or underwriters and businesses. But yeah, I would love to hear from you firsthand. How did that angle come into the picture?
The problem statement was very straightforward. When I was at ACO and we were working on a lot of partnerships, right? When you're working at partnership B2B2C driven businesses, the fundamental problem that comes about in a business is not the product, because the product is something that we can create, but it's the technology to consume that product. So insurance has two challenges, right? One, it's a push product. Two, effectively, you need to give very good consumer journeys, which is what ACO stood for, still stands for, right? When I started doing strategic alliances or trying to get partnerships up, the core problem that came about every and any point in time was the time to go to market was really large. And this was not the time for the partner to make an intent to sell insurance. It was a time for him to actually start selling insurance, right? Now, those two are fairly different things. And what started off as we need to start selling insurance got deprioritized because the tech was too confusing. So sitting with my co-founders, we realized now more than ever, customers need insurance. The best way to do it is empowering the people who are already doing it. So the mission at Assurekit is very simple, right? We want to make insurance 10x simpler. So in a nutshell, if I were to tell you what Assurekit is, right? Effectively, any distributor wanting to sell insurance can come, create a digital storefront, has the ability to see a lot of listed products that is there at the back, do a quick GTM without thinking about what technology is going to be.
I'll just hit pause on that. Like you mentioned B2B2C, you mentioned distributors. Like, what is the second B here? In the sense that one is obviously you guys. Who are you selling it to? Like, who are the guys who are distributing it?
Pretty straightforward. There are two types of businesses who want to sell insurance, right? So one type of business is in the business of insurance. So you have all your insurance intermediaries there. So you have right from your brokers, your boss agent, corporate agents, all the different people that are mandated by the IRDA to sell insurance, or they can sell insurance, right? That forms one type of business. And then you have all your technology and consumer business provider, right?
So, but the idea there is that there the insurance is like a... but the idea there is that there the insurance is it like a feature? Is it like, say, I go to Make My Trip, I book a flight ticket, and they offer me some travel insurance? Is that like a use case?
So there are multiple use cases, right? See, the use case typically depends on what downside of the customer do you want to protect, right? So, and that use case will differ from a business to business standpoint. So let's say if you were an auto loan financing company, right, you would want to provide motor insurance. At the same time, if you're a travel company, you would want to provide travel insurance or travel protection. So the use case may differ. What does not change is that the delivery for that use case, which is the technology, needs to be there. It needs to be sacrosanct, and at the same time, the ability to backward work with the manufacturer needs to be there. Of course, the compliance plays a very big role in this. Who can sell? How can they sell? What can they sell? What is the way to consume? So effectively, when you work with a consumer brand, for them, it's a vast, right? They don't want to think, they don't want to spend too much. They just want to simply monetize by adding value to their customers' life. So effectively, that's what we do. So it's that ecosystem, it's that infrastructure marketplace. We have a parallel in every industry. We have Visa in financial infrastructure. We have Razorpay in payments. All of them effectively do the same thing in their industry. So we're doing that for insurance as we speak. So yeah.
Interesting. You took the Shopify analogy, which is very interesting. Sort of almost offering like a plug and play solution for guys who want to sell insurance, right?
Yes.
Just to sort of understand a little bit better, in a Shopify example, right? I mean, when you're setting up an e-commerce business, a consumer is coming, transacting, buying, end of story. It's a customer, and then maybe he or she will do repeat transactions. But in your case, there is a potential claims as well, right? So do you sort of partake in that journey as well? Like you become the face for that consumer when it comes to settling claims?
So let me put it this way, right? I'm never the face, I'm the backbone. So the face is always the distributor who's effectively there, right? So my focus is to empower or give the distributor the backbone to effectively do it, right?
Understood.
So effectively speaking, I would give him the interface to sell. And then I would effectively give him the interface to manage. So my job is to make sure that the distributor is successful. His victory is our victory, right? And the consumer getting the right product and the service is the ultimate asset test. That's what we're effectively working towards. So we're working towards bettering the consumer experience by empowering the distributor, because it's a B2B2C business, right? Insurance effectively is a people's business. So
yeah. And since it's a very tech first business, right? Does the nature of insurance require different kind of learning or customization? When I say nature, like auto insurance, health insurance, general insurance, or sort of, because the scale of, this business is highly scalable, right? So you need not do bespoke arrangement. It's like sort of a one tech platform fits all. It doesn't matter what the manufacturer is selling. They'll still rely on you irrespective of what they're selling. Is that correct understanding?
Yeah. So effectively what I was trying to tell you is that the ideal structure is what you've defined, right? Which is having the only thing that you need to do is plug in the pipe and then push products down that pipe, right? But insurance, unlike fintech, technologies come to it now, right? From the distribution underwriting side of things, we are seeing that. So what I personally believe is insurance is going to be the next sunrise industry, right? Or it's already the sunrise industry that people want to flock to. So it's not as easy as it seems, because every insurer, think of it this way, right? India is a country with too many states, too many cultures, languages, right? Each state talks in its own language. Similarly, each insurer talks in its own language, has their own process. To sort of amalgamate that on a central level is going to be a task.
Yeah.
And that's what we're effectively doing. So you start with one line of business, but once you've gotten the hang of things, adding new things, both in that ecosystem to the distributor becomes easy. At the same time, working backward with the manufacturer also becomes easy. And the regulator is already moving in that direction, right? Like standardization has come across all industries. It will also come in insurance. So our job is very simple. Like I said, right? Like mission is insurance being 10x simpler, which makes it simpler for all stakeholders alike, not just for the distributor or just for the consumer or for the insurer. It will work when everything works. And that to me is what we're trying to build, that connector which builds all. So.
Yeah. And, like a lot of insurance consumers, right? One common anecdotal evidence, albeit a common theme that comes up and you see it on social media is like, like people thinking, oh, my insurance provider didn't communicate it clearly. This was in such fine print. It was like that seems like a very common problem, right? Like you said, right? It's not simplified enough. How does, for me, like that is a conversation between the manufacturer and the buyer, right? How does, do you have any vision of sort of simplifying that process via content or via explainer style involvement? Or is that, I'm in the business of providing a backbone of tech. That's really not a fish I'm going to fry right now. How do you sort of think about that?
Yeah, so it's actually, so the problem over here is not giving the content, right? Content's already available for people to consume the content. The problem is intent, right? So when you're doing like a travel, you effectively go to Goa, you check multiple things, right? There is an intent for you to understand more. In insurance, that's effectively absent, right? So the only thing that you can do is understand the nature of the product and the nature of the distribution. The nature of the distribution is people or business centric, right? So what you effectively do is you make sure that the people selling it become smarter. So effectively do a lot of things over there to educate them, make the buying process, or rather in their case, the selling process a lot more simpler. Give them soft nudges, do analysis at the back to recommend the right product from a consumer standpoint. So,
Adarsh, when it comes to a typical Indian insurance manufacturer, how important is digital distribution for them as we speak? Because penetration in the country in general from an insurance standpoint in most categories is still we have it's early days, right? And face to face in India is cheap. It's not that expensive, effectively. If you look at also, parallel industries like, say, wealth management, there's a lot of digitization that's going on there. But, the large brokers, institutional players, they have armies of guys who, oscillate between offices and people's homes, getting documents signatured, etc. There's obviously the age demographic issue, right? There are some people who are on the older end of the demographic and who still like to see the counterparty when it comes to buying a financial product. And secondly, it's not that super expensive. How do you see, I mean, because your product is completely built on the thesis that digital distribution is going to be the core going forward. How do you see that evolve? I mean, and obviously, like, I know you are focused currently, I think, on motor. Motor is obviously a commoditized digital first product, but that's not true for, all the segments.
Yeah, so it's nice. I'm glad that you effectively brought this up, right? Because what I want people to understand, rather, and this is just generally, right? Like, what is a digital business, right? Or what is a digital channel? A digital channel is not when you only sell direct to customer. A digital channel is transaction happening through a digital mode where the process is optimized, cost is effectively low, right? So for me, the job, when I effectively look at digital distribution, it is definitely direct to customer distribution, right? But typically what happens in an insurance product is there is no direct commodity that you're buying immediately, right? It's a promise that effectively something goes wrong, we'll help you or we'll be there, right? So understanding the nuances becomes fairly important, because of which, while the customer may show intent to purchase the product, there is always that physical nudge that is important, because you're going to trust two people, right? The company that you're purchasing, the person who's selling it to you, because both of it become fairly important in the value chain. So the Assurekit thesis is very simple. Irrespective of the distribution channel, we want to power digital distribution across all channels. So there is obviously the direct to customer approach, right? There is also the agent assisted approach, where the model, the customer talking to the customer may be physical, but the transaction effectively is digital, right? Where the discovery is happening in a fairly digital way. The document collection is happening in a fairly digital way. The average stat currently that an offline agent takes to punch a policy is anywhere between 12 to 15 days, right? You go back, you have a central office, you go at the back, the guy gives you a code, you go to the customer then asks for changes, and you go back and forth. And the entire process, which is, by the way, roughly between 80 to 90% of the overall market, right? Which is an agent-driven market, is all offline. So what you need to do is you do a step-by-step ladder approach, right? Which is you digitize the people selling it. Then effectively you try and get the consumer in the digital loop, right? So that while the first purchase has a physical approach, the next purchase has a digital approach, right? And that's what you want to do. So you want to eventually layer it up so that the cost is reduced and that engagement and trust is effectively formed. And the answer to the motor analogy is fairly simple. It's the same reason why Go Digit went with a motor first approach, right? When they wanted to go live, it's a mandatory product. It's something that the people will buy, right? From there, the first thing that you want to do when you get any form of income, at least for both a metro or tier one town, is buy a vehicle, because that's effectively a fairly large pain point, right? You want to solve that, and it's also cool to get a vehicle, right? So effectively speaking, it starts with there. It's the oldest form of embedded insurance. You then slowly graduate towards health, because your health becomes important. Expenses go on mounting. Once you are in the health, then only do you go to life, right? So it's that gradual customer handshake that takes place. And at the same time, think of us as a processor, right? We are knowing who's selling what, right? While I may not actively store the customer data, because these are not my consumers, I'm the processor in the middle, but I can definitely create models and empower people to understand their customer better and see what those tangible needs are and create products, right? So for us, the construct is going to be super simple. You facilitate traditional distribution, you optimize that so that the market increases, penetration increases, and as the market is growing, you add new products, right? So I call it the DNA approach. For us, it's super simple. The step one is digitization. Step two is effectively new origination. You create new people wanting to sell the product, and step three is amplification, right? You just amplify the market by bridging those gaps that are there. So it's a very well thought of process in our heads, right? And hopefully we're executing also well, so all works well.
So what, like, just to give a kind of sense of what kind of businesses are you catering to as of now? And it would also be good to, you obviously you don't have to name names, but maybe through an example, if you can also give us a sense of where you are able to push for a phygital approach, in the sense that say that business has an RM or like an equivalent who kind of uses your platform for document collection, for product awareness, inputting customer data, etc., or if there is also already a manifestation of your product where it is end-to-end digital for the end user. Would be good to understand that through a specific example.
Let's take two examples, right?
Yeah.
Two popular ways of selling insurance. So one is through agents. All of us know that we've had agents that are there, right? Agents can work in two particular ways. So you have your independent agents that work with insurance companies. One each is what the regulator mandates. And then you have agents working with brokers, where they're point of sale people for that particular broker license. And that's how they do it. And then you have direct to customer branch, right? So that's the Policy Bazaar structure that is there. So all three as examples, right? So Policy Bazaar in their own way is working direct to customer, getting a lot of volume over there. For them, conversion is generally single digits, right? They work on a larger pool coming in and they convert. Then you have the likes of Turtlement, Renew by a lot of them recently gotten funded, right? Their model is we will empower the agents and then take it up. And then effectively the third model is retail agents. So now if you see a common theme that these guys are doing, they're saying effectively internet versus non-internet. We are the digital first economy, and then you have the entire non-digital economy which is trying to sell to the consumers, right? Our model is actually very different. We say internet for all, right? That's where it begins from. So So if you were to visualize the model, just think of me making any player into a Turtlement today, right? Which will be an agent-assisted business, or me making anyone into a Policy Bazaar. I give them the tech infrastructure for it. The best part about us doing business with our partners is that a lot of our partners are already profitable, right? They all have 50, 100 crore, 200 crore books. A lot of them have also tried doing digital, but have failed because of them not having a digital pedigree, it not being super simple, right? So when you go to them with a plug-and-play equation where they don't have to think, they can try it out, test it out, make it as per their own model. Success for them becomes fairly easy, right? Or it comes to them almost naturally because they know how to sell. They have the relationship. Their average tag to selling is in double-digit days. We get it to under minutes. So all they need to now do is reach out to more customers. So to give you an example, an average partner of mine roughly has 4,000 to 5,000 agents, right? Like this is the small to medium kind partner. These guys used to always sell on weekdays, right? On weekends, effectively, the selling was not happening. But the moment we gave them a digital platform, we saw hits and policy conversions even on weekends, because they were always dependent on their office to be open to get the requisite codes, because not every time when you go to tier 2 or 3 towns do you have internet access. Can you effectively go inside, show him something real time, right? With us, a lot of this got solved,
right?
Because the entire process became digital, right? So that going became a lot more easier. And then on the complete flip side, you have consumer business, right? Like every consumer business, every fintech, right? After they generally become an NBFC or start lending, go towards insurance, right? Lending capital over in India, lending is a necessity because the income gap is fairly large, right? And then the next thing that you need to do is, because there is an income gap that is there, because finances are not readily available, you need to provide protection to the end consumer. And this sort of sits really well. So take any example, right? Ola effectively does it very aggressively. They have different modes of insurance. They have auto, they have micro products that they give to the consumers. Then they also have an entire fleet of drivers that are there at the back, right? Who are also an economy that they want to sell to. So my job is very simple over here, right? I will effectively give Ola the required technology that they require to sell. Now, Ola can be an Uber, can be a Porter, can be a Black Buck. These are all digital first companies. They are approaching different parts of the value chain. And see, it's like this, right? Even in COVID, the only business that generally grew apart from health insurance and insurance, right? Because it's a risk business. There is risk everywhere, right? So what we are effectively doing is giving you the delivery mechanism for selling it. Be it direct to consumer via clicking the insure now button, opening a checkout stack, completing the transaction, or an agent assisted business. So yeah.
No, I mean, when it's a direct consumer business where the customer acquisition is digital, where insurance is more like a feature embedded within, I understand. I mean, that is a classic kind of a platform integration that you guys can do. But when it comes to, say, an agent assistant model, right, that sounds like there will be some level of customization depending on which provider that you're looking to. And that sounds like more, or not like a platform play, but more like a solutions kind of a play. Or am I missing something here? Like, do you do customize bespoke solutions for them and sell platforms to consumer facing businesses, or your platform itself is like so broad and no code that they can customize it for their agents.
No code, effectively it is no code, right?
Yeah.
At the back, where everyone now wants to make an asset light business, even a tech company, because at the end of the day, the cost of developers also is increasing, right? You don't want to be even having tons of developers at the back becomes a liability, right?
Right.
After you effectively scale to a particular point, no code is the way to go ahead.
Yeah.
I personally believe in that structure. But having said that, what we end up doing is we customize the distribution, right? Not the platform. So the distribution will be customized. So think of it this way, right? An agent may call first and then go, versus an agent may go and then come get that intent lead and then effectively again call back, right? So our job is very simple, to give them the tools to distribute. Right? How they consume those tools is the business's call. And at the end of the day, the infrastructure remains the same. See, what would happen is if I were the insurer, for me, all of this would be very challenging, right? Because I have to then manage 10 channels, 10 structures, 10 commission structures. How do I effectively keep a tally of all of that? And all of that effectively is a very different problem. So we sit on the distribution layer, where insurance already is a commoditized product, right? It's a commodity at the end of the day. So that standardization on the product level, at least for auto, health and life, has already come in. So what we effectively, so we don't customize our platform, right? Because at the end of the day, you may think that you may need X, Y, and Z, but ultimately you need what is required for you to sell. And we don't work with one partner, we work with multiple partners, right? So at the end of the day, all the learnings across all partners are aggregated into the structure. That's what actually makes us a lot more unique, right? Where we are not in the business of insurance. We are not brokers trying to create a platform and also give technology as a solution. We've always from day zero built to sell. Right, the infrastructure is made in such a way that people will come and consume it and will effectively grow. So for me, when I look at a direct-to-consumer channel, that's nothing but an API going out, right?
Yeah.
For me, when I look at an agent-assisted channel, it's nothing but an API going into my agent portal.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that API works across channels. We'll slowly introduce WhatsApp insurance, the entire buying journey on WhatsApp, right? We're already doing our pilots in a few places, right? That's nothing going to be but the same API integrated in WhatsApp, right? So at the end of the day, what is it, right? It's just data feeding and data capturing mechanism that you're customizing, but the data processor remains the same. So it's the same stack when it comes to payment gateways, payment links, payment checkout stacks, or whatever you call it, right? Multiple structures there. Each of it uses the same payment processor. So effectively, it's something similar.
And is the revenue model also sort of somewhat similar in terms of its link to number of transactions that are actually taking place on the using the platform and sort of pick up a piece of that? Is that how sort of the model?
Yeah. So it works in a fairly similar way, right?
Yeah.
When I want to create a parallel, when there is no precedence, the best thing to do is go with what people understand.
Yeah.
So for us, it works per transaction. We come to a cost which makes sense for everyone. See, the model has always been very similar, right? Like it says to people, I really don't want to be a cost center, right? I want to be a revenue driver. My victory is not when you come to me as a 10-20 crore business and stay a 10-20 crore business, right? My victory is when you become a 40-50-60 crore business. And I want a piece of that vision.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we're effectively buying into. And that's how we work. So we don't work across with all partners. We've never flooded ourselves. We are working with partners who want to grow, that is one, and who care about their customers, right? So for just sort of add to that, we don't do products that we don't believe in, right? We don't do products that we think will not add value to the customer's life. Right? The construct is to work collectively to bring both, right? Digitization in that industry, and then at the end of the day, you also want to reinforce the trust factor that is there in the ecosystem back, right? Because that's what's going to help everyone.
Yeah. And in that context, because you say sort of you want a piece of the bigger vision pie, right? I think with the upcoming budget, there is some expectation of making it even more easier for insurance guys to sell other financial products. I think there is a narrative going on, which I guess bodes well in platform plays like yours, right? I mean, if it's the same guy who's doing multiple layers of business, which is ultimately selling a financial product, it just adds more layers to the same underlying tech backbone, correct?
And that's effectively how it should be also, right?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely correct. See, think of it this way, right? You want to sell insurance or you want to sell protection to the guy on which the customer trusts or customer has trust, right? Be it his banker, be it his agent, be it his loan agent, be it his uncle, for all you know, right? The construct is to empower the point of sale through which the transaction is happening, right? And that's effectively what we want to do. And that's one of the reasons that we don't differentiate with the kind of point of sale, right? We don't give, let's say, the largest partner a very different tech stack from the smallest partner, right? The utilization and effectiveness of the platform changes, but the construct remains the same. And that's what that's every fintech or every tech company working towards that same digital India mission, right? And that's effectively the stack that we're working on. So, yeah.
In terms of sort of comps, right? Like if, obviously it's a tech platform and there is tech moats that come with it. And on top of that, then there is the whole game of how many issuers or how many manufacturers are in bed with the company, right? Like the more it is, the difficult it becomes for other guys to penetrate in. But sort of what is the unique competitive edge? Like, what do you say? Is it tech? Is it sort of early market? And what are the close comps and how are things doing differently? We don't have to take names, but like any aspirational comps, maybe in the Western world or, things which you think people have really cracked it or, along those lines, like do you look at Compintel and say like, okay, this is interesting. And, or you feel like, we are sort of the pace at which we are sort of going to grow and get as many manufacturers on board, then it becomes sort of almost impenetrable mode. Like, how do you view it, your competitive edge?
Yeah, so this is a very tricky one to answer, right? So, see, there's going to be competition everywhere, and generally competition is good, right? It pushes you to go forward. Right? But I think the one USP that we have over everyone else, and this is not something that people give a lot of credit to, is clarity, right? What is it that we are building? So we have a very simple and defined business model, a problem statement which is simple to understand, right? Which is distribution and servicing is broken. We want to plug that, and we will work towards reinforcing that mission, right? So while you have a lot of companies in India, while not a lot, like a handful of them, but they're in the news quite often, right? They are doing digital distribution. They are a participant in the equation, and then they're also giving technology out for other people to use it, right? For me, it's a very murky sort of a structure, while it does work at scale because enterprise deals are definitely there. But for me, effectively, you are aggregating your learnings across, you'll always be one step ahead, right? So to have the neutral entity work towards a collective growth of the ecosystem generally works well, right? So we're poised not to become an insurer, not to become a distributor, as of now at least, right? Not to become a licensed player, it's to power everyone. You definitely do have global peers that are there, right? But the Western world is a very different market, right? The licenses and the way they operate also is very different. So you have MGAs outside. A lot of people who build technology in the Western world all build it for self-consumption, right? Yeah. The no-code platform will be self-consumption. The only ones that are across industries are the SaaS platforms that are there, but they work across industries where insurance also is a part. So no one collectively working to solve the distribution problem. Everyone's working to solve the product and distribution problem, right? The one that got closest to solving it, and I'm a personal fan of that company, is VFox, right? They started off as a intermediary, then effectively went on becoming a platform play, then effectively went on introducing more products, and then everything is amalgamated under the VFox banner, right? They have a clarity of thought that we are going to be a B2B2C first business. Our customer acquisition cost at any point is going to be defined. We will focus on both empowering the distributor and the consumer. So a lot of the values that VFox has is something that we resonate with because they're working towards the collective good of the industry, not effectively wanting to replace anyone out of the equation, right? So I personally feel a lot of companies that have that mission, we resonate with, and a lot to learn, right? Like you have global embedded players, you have direct to consumer brands. There's a lot of awareness of insurance in the Western world, because of which innovation becomes a possibility, right? But at the end of the day, when you're building for a market like India, which is a price-sensitive market where there is some form of trust deficit, if not complete structure, right? The way you execute in India becomes fairly different. So when I say Assurekit, Shopify, the vision is exactly similar to Shopify, right? Where you build in India, you build in your home turf, you get distribution, you solve at scale, and then you move outwards. At the heart of things, we're a tech platform. Would love to sort of stay that way, right? And solve for the larger picture. So yeah.
There are, not obvious parallels, but there is a journey which happened in lending and in credit, which started probably a decade back, and which is now kind of catching up in insurance, in the sense that within that also, as soon as digital became big enough, the balance sheet players started by depending on third party platforms initially, but over time when they realized that this is a big enough channel of its own, they started making fairly sizable amount of investments in digital transformation. And I actually give a lot of credit to Indian banks, because I was based out of UK for close to 5.5, 6 years, and I there obviously I had a good visibility into the banking sector in the UK as well as the banking sector in the US. And I think Indian banks, when it comes to technology adoption, have been maybe you can kind of ignore public sector setups, but at least the private sector banks have been pretty ahead of the curve. At least that's my personal opinion. Do you see that also, that kind of similar behavior or even risk in your case, that underwriters or large distributors at some point in time would like to internalize a fair bit of the digital distribution game? Or you feel that at the end of the day, from a economic standpoint, from a product development journey standpoint, from the standpoint of their legacy, that's just not something that they understand or appreciate, or they like to put in too much of time or effort into, and would love to always partner with a player such as yours?
Yeah, so this is where, so like you rightly pointed out, right? Fintech, I think India, or technology or finance in India is booming, right? I'm quite a big fan of the Indian fintech ecosystem. But when you talk about insurance, yeah, Indian insurers effectively understand everything, right? They understand risk, they understand data, they understand pricing, they understand technology, right?
Yeah.
It's just that because of the sheer volume that India stands on, right? Digital transformation is not easy. Right, digital transformation, it takes time. Right? And let's understand what the insurer's core business is. The insurer's core business is risk management. Right? Effectively, it's not customer acquisition. It's when effectively someone gets him a customer, or he gets himself a customer, to place that risk, underwrite that risk well, and give the right claim support to the customer when it's required. So massive traditional baggage is what the current insurers have. They're all working towards improving it. But a lot of the innovation will go on the underwriting and claim side of things, right? Because that's what creates repeat purchase. That's what creates renewals, which is better for the insurer, right, in the long term. When you look at the overall cost funnel when it comes to insurance, right, you always have the risk cost that is there, the cost for you to keep the risk. Then you effectively have distribution costs, you have technology costs, you have administration costs, and you have a lot of other costs that are there. The moment you start doing direct to consumer on your own, one of the reasons why insurers still have a fairly small chunk of this is when the costs balloon out and the portfolio becomes non-profitable. You'd rather go to someone who already has a book, tell him to sell more, because at the end of the day, you are being true to what you're doing, which is managing the risk. He's effectively doing what he's doing, right, which is selling to the customer and servicing the customer. But when it comes to sheer technology, India is ahead of the curve. A lot of global companies, when you travel outside, when you look at insurance companies outside, they look at India for the kind of technology advancement that's already happened, right? Global insurers, a lot of them don't even have API stacks, right? They give you the underlying the underwriting logic, and then you go and distribute. So the way I look at it, a lot of innovation will definitely come on the insurance side of the equation also, which is underwriting, claims, processes. They will make their own internal process people efficient, right? And that's what that's something the regulators already working towards. The regulators also charting out and creating micro insurers, business specific insurers, right, where they want that administration and servicing to be on point, right, and who will then work with the remaining distributors that are there and go ahead. Because at the end of the day, be it even when the insurer does direct channels, right, like 2 to 3% happens digitally. Apart from that, everything happens from their agents.
Yeah.
Right. So for them also, it's another entity, third party entity that is there. So while it's directly booked in the insurer's code, it's still people. It's a complicated product, right? Like it's a simple product, which because there is no customer intent to understand it clearly, well, it's complicated, right? If you would ever take interest to understand, okay, no, these are the basic covers that I need to look out for. These are the things that I need to look out for my health policy or my motor policy. You would effectively buy smartly, right? Like, for example, am an aware customer. I would effectively go, I know who to buy from, who's effectively giving me the best service, and then effectively I'll go to him. Be it the agent in my family or be it someone outside. Right? It will depend on my geographical structure, my affinity towards a particular insurer. So it's going to be a people-intensive business here when it comes to distribution. It's for which I think the first thing that the Indian insurers are already doing on part of it is to create a better data model, data structure, underwriting and claims process. People are innovating on the distribution, and something that they would love to partner up with is already happening as we speak, sir.
Right.
Just quick question. All the manufacturers, distributors that are sort of using your technology to sell insurance, the data points that are generated with the customer journey, is that sort of ring fenced only for them, or do you have access to that data to run your own analytics behind it and for yourself, or to even perhaps advise the distributor on some things, right? So just wanted to get a sense of that.
Yeah, so technically speaking, we don't use any data, right? We don't effectively, so while we are the processor, we are effectively the processor, right? We are not the primary custodian of the data or the end distribution point. So what I effectively do, and this is where my team comes into play, right? So our team is pretty structured, is what I would like to call it, right? From having a veteran insurance business head, we also have an actuary on board, right? So what we're doing right now is building models or getting those expert techniques at the point of sale, so that the distributor makes a conscious structure and sells well. At the same time, building models to help the distributor understand in terms of what to sell. So that's effectively what we're doing. So the beauty about our model is we become the convergence and divergence point, which effectively helps the distributor across insurers. But in the absolute sense, we don't store any data, right? One of the reasons why we have all our certifications in place, we did it the first day, right? It's a trust business. It starts from trust in the technology to then effectively going at. One of the reasons why a lot of our sales has all been inbound. We've never gone out and told people that this is what we are doing. It's either been referrals through insurance business heads or effectively people who are already using the product. So we've been lucky with that. Sales team is super lean. There's me plus my business head plus one more person who we've hired recently, right? So it's just that, no one else.
Is there a dream or a vision ever to start selling insurance yourselves?
Yeah, so I'll be very straightforward and upfront with you, right? As of now, there is no vision to become an insurance company, but the way at least I like to build Assurekit, or the way I've built before, is I have a vision, right? Like to make that process simple, to make that process efficient. We want to make insurance 10x simple. We want to make sure that each family has financial protection, right? When it comes to all their needs. If in the future we require to do something else apart from what we're doing, would be open to it, right? It's the same way Razorpay has diversified into 10 different business verticals, right? You have an ultimate vision, and whatever you need to do to build that vision, you would effectively do it, right? Definitely open to co-creating products with insurers, right? Where we could get them the requisite understanding, reduce the technology costs, launch products on our distribution networks so that the GTM can be done much faster, much better, much more efficiently, right?
Yeah.
So those structures are definitely in play. But as of now, like I said, right, I want to help the ecosystem. The moment you become a participant in the ecosystem, there is always that vested interest to grow, right? Like growth and growth generally in a underpenetrated market generally comes at the cost of others. And why do cost battles when you can effectively make the overall ecosystem a lot more efficient, right? So that's the philosophy at which we work here.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And obviously you have a sort of tech bent to scaling business, right? Like, no, the reason I ask is others, like, the pain point sort of you alluded to of helping customers, right, in their financial planning or sort of deconstructing for it. In my view, right, to get there with the eventual goal, at some point you'll have to do a B2C kind of a relationship, like become the guy that the customer is directly interacting with to actually have a say. That's sort of why I brought that up, right? Because as of now, like, you're helping existing insurance companies sort of scale better and do better business and help families, but it's sort of a backseat role, right? In terms of that vision. Ecosystem, direct role, absolutely. Penetration, absolutely. No questions asked, right? So that's sort of why I thought, like, maybe down the future when you get like more intel and you already understand it, but maybe there will be a point where you to actually solve that, I probably need to start speaking to direct insurance purchasers. Yeah.
So let's put it this way. What I would rather want to do, at least in the short term, is you see Visa, right? Visa does not do direct to customer, but Visa instills a mark of trust, right? So what I would want to move more towards is if we are the network, you should be rest assured that the servicing will effectively be good, delivery will effectively be good. So you want to be associated with the right adjectives when it comes to the distribution economy. Owning the product is getting into a very different business, right? It's getting into underwriting. While we may again do that from a co-creation perspective, we're not insurers, right? That's a fairly different business. That's a very regulated business. What we would rather do is solve for India, then go to other geographies, replicate the same technology there, probably in a differentiated business model, right? Because each market works differently. The way the government wants to protect their citizens' interests, the protection structure is going to be different, sort of compared to that. So as of now, no near futures, no plans to become an insurance company, but it's always about the end consumer, right? You want to give them the best experience, and to think that businesses would not want to do that would be a lie, right? Every business wants to give the best experience. So our model has been very simple: work with businesses who care, right? So you may not have, let's say, 100,000 businesses, but the businesses you have would definitely grow, right? And it's all about that. It's about setting the right foundation and then growing ahead. So yeah.
So Adarsh, where are you in terms of staging of the business? I know that like you've raised a bunch of capital. I think you've raised around 6 million to date. On the website, obviously, I can see there's a wait list. From a product development standpoint and from a deployment standpoint, where do you guys stand? Where do you guys see yourself? Are you right now basically onboarding a lot of manufacturers? You're already serving customers from a, if you want to share any headline numbers, be it revenue, be it operational traction, would be super helpful.
Here we already have distributors. We're working with with all three classes, right? Small, medium, large alike. So we've selected our customers across brackets. We definitely started with auto. We have roughly 10 to 12 manufacturers there in auto. Now we're working on both health and alternate product classes that we want to look into, right? Having said that, there is a wait list because we also wanted to solve. So we're building the right thing, that we're not over cluttering, we're not under cluttering. There is a concept that I call as tech waste, right? So we don't want to waste the time and bandwidth of people that we have. We want to solve the right problems, right? Having said that, there has been a lot of regulatory change, right, in the structure, where the regulators demanded a lot of things to be upgraded in their insurance infrastructure. So we are again rebuilding. We're again tweaking, we're again fine-tuning, all in good spirits, because personally think it's a move in the right direction, right? So as long as everyone at the company has a very positive sentiment. So we do have customers, they do have their customers. We're already working with a ton of insurers at the back. We're working with specialized risk manufacturers to see what new products we can get in the ecosystem, right? What would be the right distribution point for it? What would be the right customer profile for it, right? So all of that is happening at the back. The team is fairly adept. We are now, I think we've just touched 50 people that are there, but all stalwarts, right? So much so that we had a very strong connection from the day that we were there. We've not had a lot of people leave us. Our churn rate is under 5%, right? So we've not had people go away. At the same time, people are fairly happy. So we get mission-oriented people, right? Someone who knows that this is what we're going to do, because it's going to take time, right? I have no answer to all the problems in the ecosystem right now, just because there are so many problems to solve, right? So it's that right layering that we're doing. So have a little bit of everything, doing well with the partners that are there. One of the reasons why they're also referring. It's a very small industry, right? When it comes to known distributors, and we're being referred around by a lot of people. We've not had any customer leave us, which is also a fairly great sign, right? Because of which people are growing. So new companies coming in, existing companies growing, a lot of understanding of what needs to be built on ground is coming. So we're fairly confident. So we may not do everything, but what we're doing, we're definitely one of the top 3 people doing it. So.
But on the customer end, I understand you have manufacturers onboarded, but is your product deployed with a few customers already?
Yeah. So I have networks which are 100, 200 crore plus in premium already using me. We've just onboarded some very large networks that do roughly 500 to 700 crores in premium getting deployed there. So see, the thought process is when you want to deploy insurance technology, right? The way that I work with people is I tell them, try it out, see it out, anyways, no cost, right? We don't have to do any kind of additional standalone deployment. It's built on the network architecture, just like Slack, right? You go on Slack, create your workspace, like an entire infrastructure is created. We just work like that, right? So we've solved a lot of problems for us, which makes it easier for us and our partners to take experiments.
Right.
A lot of people have signed up. Like a lot of our contracts started as 2-month, 3-month, 4-month testers, but by the end of the first month, the customer has converted. Right. So simple, cheap experiments playing out in the long run. And now we're working with a few specialized insurers, like the same way M2B built, right? Once you built an infrastructure, you create affinity with 3 or 4 players. You want to grow deep because after a point, while you can enable standardization structures, you want to innovate. right? And that's what we're working towards. So what can we do to innovate? Again, just off the record, don't quote me anywhere. Construct is, there are a lot of things that I don't personally believe in when they're sold as insurance products, right? A lot of it is just variation of the same product called differently, the same triggers, same constructs, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to go in a space where you're just selling to create top line. For us, the products that we want to work towards are the products that the customer is cognizant about when he's purchasing. And at the same time, I can solve for a tangible service experience.
Right.
That's what we're effectively working towards. Yeah.
From the standpoint of like margins of profitability, is it like a typical tech driven play with the gross margins are like 50-60%? Like how does it exactly work in your particular industry or sector?
Yeah, gross margin is definitely above 50-60%, right?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental mode of the tech infrastructure marketplace play, where we don't take any of the risk on our books, but at the same time, we make a processing fee, right?
Yeah.
Now that processing fee varies, right? From product to product, partner to partner. We have a minimum, we have an upper limit because we also want the partner to earn, right? We have a slab-based system. We don't want none of those things. So from a profitability perspective, think of it this way, right? Without trying hard, without multiple people trying hard, it's already $100 billion market, right? What happens when you start trying? So effectively, we're already at the starting point with a very large market, and now we want to grow the market further. That is part one. So market is very large, right? Timing is absolutely correct. People post the COVID structure became aware about the right protection that they want to reach, right?
Yeah.
And the reach that we have is fairly infinite. Right? Like the problem that we have is not unique to India. Right, the problem exists. There is the same problem when you talk on the global structure, right? You have internet, non-internet economy structures. You rarely have internet for all companies that come out, right? So the wave typically goes in this particular fashion. You prove the internet versus non-internet economy model, internet works. And then you have people who say internet for all and say that now that this has worked, let's give this to everyone in a fairly cost-effective manner, right? It's the same principle with lending. It's the same principle with finance. Infrastructure companies are built on that principle of democratization. We're built on that principle. So, like I said, right, while India is the start, definitely look to become profitable here, but at the same time, we're also looking at the global market, right? The tech that we've created would definitely, if I were to peg myself against any distribution platform, I would definitely be in the top 10, right? Not that we are looking at it because the output will come only when you put the right products. So we've not uploaded the right products to go ahead, but whenever I travel internationally for InsurTech conferences, we do talk about what we're doing. We do talk about our architecture. And there has never been a single person who's come and told me that I don't want to know more, right? They always want to know more in terms of what's happening, because it's such a simple problem which warrants a simple solution, but at large scale, which makes the overall ecosystem a lot more complicated, right? And that's what we're trying to solve. So we'll take time. Money is definitely there. It's just the start, right? Payments started with payments, went to collections, went to something else altogether, right? So multiple parts of the value chain also will get digitized. There'll be more money, yeah. So the moment you solve for the first problem, people start using it, then they go to the next problem. They think that now who will solve for this, right? And that's when a lot of competition will also pop up. So the way we think about this is, while we definitely do want to become a fairly large company, we also want to be the network on which large companies are built on, right? And that's the real asset test. If we can sort of achieve that, then there is that victory that we want to sort of see right at the end of the tunnel. So, yeah.
Understood. No, this is super fascinating, Adarsh. One question, just want to be devil's advocate here. What keeps you up at night? What makes you nervous? I mean, I understand that the vision, the market, the scale, the problem, that all is pretty clear. But obviously, you're not the only fish. There are other people also trying to game this. And technology is something which it's always about constant innovation, constant upgradation. It's about retention of talent. So from that standpoint, what do you think is the I know promoters or business operators don't like to talk about the inherent risks within their business, but we want to obviously understand, what do you think might be one?
Yeah, so I'll start off by my cats keep me up at night, right? Like, so effectively, that's one fundamental problem that I have. But on the other side, yeah, so I have two other co-founders, right? And it's a trio. So effectively, this is my fundamental philosophy of starting the business, right? I'm an eternal optimist, right? I would effectively believe in success, and I would keep going, pushing through, come what may, right? So you have those problem statements that are there. For example, the new regulatory change where everything had to be done overnight, right? That's an operational issue, but I was still positive about the outcome that would come, right? So for me, I am the eternal optimist. I do kind of sleep well at night. Then I have an internal pessimist in the team, right? So he's my tech head, right? So effectively for him, everything is the problem that will fail. So he solves in a fairly future-proof manner. And then we have an internal realist who's my product head, right? So when you combine the three together, he's the guy who balances and channels everyone out. So he has sleepless nights at times, and then effectively that's how it works. So put it together, the structure works well, and that's why I tell people start with two other co-founders, an optimist, pessimist, and a realist. But on a side note, when we talk about just problems, it's the construct of you giving your all. You can always solve for the ecosystem, but if there is no intent to uptake, that's when it becomes a problem. So I had this problem when we started off, right? We were solving for it. We were a fairly new company in the market trying to go to larger clients, right?
Yeah.
The barriers that you need to jump to go there is fairly high. So at every stage and structure, it's been that problem.
Because I imagine the sales cycle with underwriters can be fairly long, right?
It's a chicken and egg problem.
I mean, like when it comes to traditional financial institutions, typically they are very slow moving, right? I mean, there's yeah.
I went to the distribution where there was always business.
Right.
So I went business first and then went to manufacturers saying that this is what I want to digitize. But now that I've digitized, let me aggregate it across all players.
Right.
So I never went to the manufacturers first. The manufacturers were aware of what we are solving. So we did it the other way around. We told them this is what we want to solve. Do you have the right distributor where you are facing this problem?
Right.
You want to get an entry.
Right.
And that's effectively what we did. So we've done a lot of hacks. Also comes from being a participant of the ecosystem, having a lot of family pedigree here.
Yeah.
So you get access to a lot of people. A business head has crossed 20 years in the industry. He has a lot of access to people. So it's just, we did not really have an access problem.
Yeah.
There was intent. Like I said, Indian insurers are very smart, right? They're one of the best when it comes to solving for things. So we always have a solution for everything, right? The regulator is pro-consumer. Then we effectively went to the distributor saying that, hey, we know the insurers, this is what we want to solve for. Do you have this problem? And they said, yes. We told them we'll not charge you anything for building.
Yeah.
And that's how we start building, right? So we went one step at a time. And that's one of the reasons why we've never been very hard pressed with customers. We are okay with saying no with things that we don't have. You cannot solve for everything at every point in time. We don't do business that is not profitable, right? Effectively, I would never do a deal where I'm burning all the time.
Right.
Right? Because in this kind of a structure, as you scale cost after a particular point in time, come and optimize at a particular level, right? So you never want to be on the bad side of the transaction curve. Like I would never do a transaction. Let's say if it's 100 rupee transaction, I would never take like 10 paise for it, right? 10 bips is not something that I would even get up for going, because while I solve for it, it's not in the right spirit, right? He's not wanting to solve for the problem. He's wanting to increase his margin, right?
Yeah.
That's not the kind of customer we want to get in bed with. So yeah.
Interesting. So, thanks, Adarsh. This was super interesting. We'd like to think of ourselves as a platform where we can, conduct nuanced discussions around, what makes a business tick, scale, and stay in business for the long term. Hopefully, this conversation is something that fits into that bucket. Would like to remind our listeners that please do hit the like and subscribe button. It would really help us, and do drop us a line in the email address in the description if you are a founder and who you want and you would like us to drill down into your business model, or if you're a fund manager and we can talk about your internal mandate. And with that, I think this episode is done and dusted. Sharad, I had a lot of fun, and with that would like to sign off. Thanks, Adarsh. Have a good one.